Let's talk in British English. Arthur Pringle, a rather unassuming chap from Nottingham, harbored a secret ambition. He longed to master British English, not just to understand the Queen's broadcasts, but to converse fluently without a hint of awkwardness. He'd often muse, is it truly worth the bother? Perhaps I should just stick to my local dialect. This peculiar thought, why you should not learn English, often plagued him. He worried about losing his unique local charm, or worse, becoming overly reliant on a global tongue. Would it dilute his very essence, making him just another voice in a cacophony of similar accents? It was a curious dilemma. Yet, the allure of understanding British humor, the nuances of wit, and the sheer joy of communicating with people from diverse backgrounds was simply too powerful to resist. Arthur knew deep down, despite his reservations, that this linguistic journey was inevitable, a path he simply had to embark upon. One crisp autumn morning, whilst queuing for his morning cuppa at the local bakery, he overheard a conversation that would forever alter his perspective. Two elderly ladies discussing the merits of proper marmalade used such rich, evocative language, it truly captivated Arthur's attention. A spoonful of this, my dear, one declared, is like a ray of sunshine on a dreary Tuesday. Absolutely smashing. Arthur thought. Smashing? What a brilliant word. It sparked something within him, a renewed determination to embrace the beautiful complexity of the English language. He decided then and there that this journey would be an adventure, not a chore. Arthur was determined to learn English properly, without succumbing to the temptation of giving up. He vowed to find his own unique way, focusing on practical and enjoyable methods. His first resolution: talk in English just 1 page per day. This seemed incredibly manageable, a tiny bite-sized commitment that wouldn't feel overwhelming. He found an old tattered copy of a classic British novel at a charity shop, a tale of daring adventures. He committed to reading just 1 page front and back, every single evening before bed. Sometimes it was thrilling, sometimes a bit of a slog, but he never missed a day. This consistent, small effort began to build a solid foundation, page by painstaking page. Remembering words had always been Arthur's Achilles heel. He'd learn a new word one day, only for it to vanish into the ether the next. He needed a clever strategy, something more effective than rote memorization, something truly spot on. His brilliant idea. Context. When he encountered a new word like pernickety, he wouldn't just look it up. He'd try to imagine a pernickety old schoolteacher, meticulously correcting grammar, making the word stick through vivid imagery and association. He also started using new words in silly, short sentences, whispering them to himself whilst walking the dog. That lamppost looks rather jaunty today, he'd mutter, incorporating new vocabulary into his mundane routines, making it an active process. To make confidence in speaking, Arthur knew he needed to conquer his fear of sounding daft. He decided to practice talking to himself in the mirror, recounting his day in proper British English, complete with appropriate intonation and pauses. Right, Arthur, he declared to his reflection. Today was rather a busy one, wasn't it? Had to queue for ages at the post office. Absolutely dreadful. He'd force himself to articulate clearly, even if his only audience was his own quizzical reflection. He realized that making mistakes was not a sign of failure, but a crucial part of the learning process. Each mispronounced word or grammatical error was simply a stepping stone towards greater fluency, a valuable lesson learned. Arthur also discovered the power of learn English through stories. Beyond his nightly novel, he started listening to British podcasts, particularly those narrating historical events or quirky local tales. The narrative thread made comprehension much easier. The stories provided natural context for new vocabulary and grammatical structures. Instead of isolated words, he absorbed them within the flow of an engaging plot, making the learning process far more enjoyable and intuitive than endless grammar drills. He found a podcast about peculiar British traditions, which explained phrases like, "It's raining cats and dogs," through a charming anecdote about old roofing. This made idioms much more memorable and less confusing. To how to talk in English, Arthur started visiting a local community center that hosted an English conversation club. At first, he was terribly nervous, his palms sweating, his throat tight with unspoken words. His first few attempts at conversation were halting, punctuated by long pauses and frequent ums and eh. But the other members, a mix of native speakers and fellow learners, were incredibly supportive, encouraging him to keep trying. One kindly gentleman, a retired English teacher named Mr. Bumble, offered him invaluable advice. "Don't fret about perfection, lad," he'd say with a twinkle in his eye. "Just get your meaning across. The rest will follow, I promise you." Arthur learned to embrace the awkward silences, to take his time formulating thoughts. He realized that fluent speakers often pause too, to gather their thoughts. It wasn't just a sign of his struggle, but a natural part of communication. He began to mimic the intonation and rhythm of native speakers, paying close attention to how they stressed certain words or sentences to convey emotion. This wasn't just about vocabulary, but about the music of the language. His how to learn English strategy evolved. It wasn't about cramming, but about consistent, enjoyable engagement. He started watching British comedies, not just for the laughs, but to pick up on natural conversational patterns and slang. He subscribed to British newspapers online, reading articles about current affairs, sports, and even celebrity gossip. This exposed him to a wide range of vocabulary and formal, as well as informal language usage. Arthur joined online forums dedicated to British culture and hobbies, where he could read and occasionally contribute to discussions in English. This provided low-pressure opportunities to practice his written communication skills. He discovered that learning English was not a solitary endeavor, but a journey best shared. Connecting with other learners, even virtually, created a sense of camaraderie and mutual encouragement. The idea of talk in English just one page per day expanded. Now it wasn't just reading but speaking one paragraph of a new story he'd invented, or even just describing his day aloud. He made it a habit to narrate his daily activities to himself in English, as if he were a commentator on his own life. "Right, heading to the kitchen now, time for a proper cuppa." This constant, gentle immersion proved incredibly effective. His brain was consistently engaged with the language, even during seemingly mundane tasks. It was always ticking over, processing English sounds and structures. He also incorporated listening to British radio whilst driving or doing chores. Even if he didn't understand every single word, the exposure to natural speech patterns was invaluable for his auditory comprehension. Arthur discovered that very interesting story elements could be found everywhere. He'd turn mundane events into little narratives, describing them to himself in English, imagining he was writing a short tale. For instance, a trip to the supermarket became The Great Quest for Digestive Biscuits, complete with dramatic internal monologue in his best British accent. This made practice less of a chore. He even started a small journal, writing down 5 new words he'd encountered each day, along with a short, funny sentence using each word. This cemented them in his memory far more effectively. The why you should not learn English argument began to fade away. Arthur realized that learning a new language didn't diminish his own identity, but rather enriched it, adding a new dimension to his perspective. He found that understanding British English opened doors to new literature, films, and connections he wouldn't have otherwise experienced. His world became bigger, broader, and far more fascinating. His confidence in speaking soared. He no longer froze when approached by a tourist asking for directions. He could now confidently offer assistance, perhaps even recommend a decent pub for a pint. The initial dread of how to talk in English was replaced by genuine enthusiasm. He actually looked forward to opportunities to engage in conversation, to put his newfound skills to the test. He realized that fluency wasn't about speaking without an accent, but about communicating effectively and comfortably. His Nottingham lilt was still there, but now it was layered with confident English. The journey had been far from linear, with moments of frustration and self-doubt. But Arthur's consistent effort, coupled with enjoyable methods, kept him moving forward, one small step at a time. He understood that how to remember words wasn't a magic trick, but a combination of active recall, contextual learning, and consistent exposure. Repetition in varied contexts was key. He found that trying to explain new words to someone else, even if it was just his pet goldfish, helped solidify them in his mind. The act of teaching reinforced his own learning. The Talk in English Just 1 Page Per Day motto had transformed his routine into a continuous learning cycle, not just a set time for study. Every interaction became a learning opportunity. He even started dreaming in English occasionally, a clear sign that the language was truly integrating into his subconscious. It was a peculiar and rather delightful sensation. The British English he now spoke felt natural, almost an extension of himself. He could crack a dry joke, understand a subtle piece of sarcasm, and even complain about the weather with authentic British flair. His initial fear of losing his cultural identity was unfounded. Instead, he felt more connected to the broader English-speaking world, while still cherishing his local roots and accent. Arthur Pringle, the once hesitant chap, now felt a quiet pride in his linguistic achievements. He had proven to himself that dedication and a dash of creativity were all one needed. He would often advise others, "Don't overthink it, just start. 1 page, 1 word, 1 conversation at a time. Every little bit truly adds up, like bricks in a grand old building." His very interesting story became his own tale of transformation, a testament to the fact that learning a language can be a deeply personal and enriching adventure, if approached correctly. And the why you should not learn English argument? He now viewed it as a clever psychological trick, a challenge to overcome, rather than a genuine barrier. It made the success sweeter. So if you're pondering embarking on this linguistic journey, remember Arthur's tale. Embrace the daily commitment, find joy in stories, and don't be afraid to make a complete hash of it sometimes. Because true confidence in speaking comes not from flawless grammar, but from the sheer courage to open your mouth and give it a jolly good go. That's the British spirit of it all. His journey taught him that learning English is less about academic perfection and more about forging connections, understanding different perspectives, and simply enjoying the ride. It's about building a bridge between cultures, one word, one phrase, one delightful story at a time. And what could be more rewarding than that, really? Absolutely brilliant. So ditch the textbooks for a bit, find a cracking good story, and just start talking. Even if it's just to your reflection, or a bewildered pigeon in the park. Because honestly, the greatest barrier to learning British English isn't complexity, but simply the fear of not being proper. And trust me, dear reader, everyone makes mistakes. It's part of the fun.